Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today I'm joined by Jim Huntzicker. He's a Chicago real estate investor and the founder of RealEstateInvestorAcademy.com, a real estate coaching program. And Jim's been involved in hundreds of real estate transactions, and like me, he loves to meet other people, so he recently interviewed 29 rockstar real estate investors, some of the biggest names in our industry, and put all the transcripts in an ebook that he's just started sharing with the world, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And he came out of these interviews with a ton of lessons learned from many of the top real estate investors in America, including Doug Clark of Flipman, Than Merrill, Chief Denny, Kent Clothier, Larry Goins, heck, even yours truly was involved. But if you enjoy my show and you like to meet a lot of other people and learn from their experiences, you're going to love today's show because Jim is going to share a lot of the lessons learned and experiences he had from interviewing these folks. So before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Yo, Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah. So it's interesting because in your process of creating the ebook, I bet that you had a lot of the same experiences that I do. I'm a veteran real estate investor, I've done hundreds of deals. And then you start talking to people and you kind of quickly realize that you really don't know a whole lot. You probably had the same experience, right?
You know, it's wild. I'm doing this 7 years and I'm primarily a rehabber, you know.
Yeah.
And so I knew I would learn a lot in this experience. I learned more than I ever imagined. It was such a great experience, just really awesome. I mean, and I've done, a couple hundred deals myself, but there's guys in this book that have done 3,000 deals, you know, I'm nothing. This guy did that in 1 year, you know?
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in fact, that's part of the opportunity of real estate investing is there's a lot of ways to make money. I think that's also part of the challenge that a lot of people face is it gets overwhelming at how many ways there are to make money, right? So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's part of one of the big, there's a lot of takeaways that I'll go through here, but one of the big ones is just to pick something and focus on it, And so many people, I think, get into real estate investing and they go to a RIA event and they hear about wholesaling, but they want to rehab, but they don't want to wholesale. They want to rehab because there's more money in it. And then they're like, what's the subject to? Like, oh, that sounds cool too. Or how about a lease option? Or, well, you could wholesale a lease option? Like, well, I think I want to do that, And so they just get like that shiny, like a lot of entrepreneurs, we get that shiny object syndrome, and you start going all over it because there's so many different ways you can go.
Absolutely. Hey, before we kind of dive into talking about some of the things you learned and some of the people you talked to, why don't you introduce us to yourself? Tell us about a little bit about how you got started and a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, I'm Jim Huntzicker. I'm a licensed real estate agent, which is where I started. I was an agent first, and I started working with investors. My father was actually an agent too, so he worked with all our friends and family, so I was kind of screwed when I got into the business in that regard, so I had to figure out somebody to work with, right? So I found real estate investors, and so I started working with them, and it didn't take me very long to realize I was on the wrong side of that coin because I'm helping these guys. I make a little commission, and they're popping 30 grand, a pop. So I quickly realized about a year of working with those guys, I should become a real estate investor myself. And so I thought because I was an agent, I could very easily become a real estate investor. Hey, I'm an agent. I'm licensed. I know how to do this. And boy, was I wrong. So through lots of trials, tribulations, and figuring things out, I did start rehabbing properties. And so because I was an agent first, I had the MLS, and so I've always used the MLS as my primary deal source. Yep. Now my market here is I buy around $225 to $250 the purchase price, and we sell them around anywhere $400 to $500, $600. So it's a higher price point than most people would be comfortable marketing. But that's where I live. That's what I learned, and that's what I know. Good or bad, it is what it is. And so I've used the MLS to get 75% of my deals for the last 7 years, and so that's what I've been doing.
That's incredible. Yeah, I know. I actually mentor some folks in the Chicago area, and I grew up in Illinois, and so Chicago is a unique market, and there's some other markets like it where you can actually still find quite a few deals on the MLS. I mean, where I'm at in Dallas, not so. And there's probably some people that would totally disagree with me, but those are the people that are comfortable doing a lot of thin stuff that I'm just not comfortable doing. But yeah, Chicago is still one of those markets where you can do really well in the MLS, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I got students. I teach one-on-one. I got students all over the country too. And there's guys that have never used the MLS before that have only done private seller marketing, and they're like, so how do you do that? And I give them a couple of tips, and they're like, holy crap, And then there is markets where it's like, man, I can't seem to do it, and it's some work. It's not a piece of cake, but there's tricks and tools to how to work the MLS and how to do it.
Sure,
and so,
absolutely.
Yeah, no question of over the country there's tighter areas where the MLS is very difficult to get deals from.
Yep. Awesome. So why don't you tell us some of what you got out of creating your ebook and interviewing so many guys? And gal, I should say gal. Guys and gal.
Yeah, Wendy Patton on lease options is, but this was, I set out to get 15 guys, by the way. And so I figured I would reach out to 50, right? You get less than half, and, a lot of these big time guys that, wouldn't have time for an interview the response was phenomenal. So I couldn't believe it. And just really, really top notch guys that, are very busy in their businesses. But what I found, a lot of them actually don't work that much because they set up systems. A lot of them work, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are like, they have time because they have systems in place. And I'll go through some of the apps and the websites they use to track their teams, which a lot of these guys said the same apps and it was just incredible information. So I heard it from 5, 6, 7, 8 different guys, the same app that they run their entire rehab business with. And they control 3 or 4 different teams or different businesses in different parts of the country with this same website/app. So I'll go through that here. But the biggest thing I took away from this was, to focus, like we just mentioned, to focus on one thing. Just, pick something where, most people should probably start with wholesaling because it makes sense because you can do it with very, very limited, where you can't get hurt. You can literally do a rehab deal with no money. Do a wholesale deal with no money.
Right.
And now everybody wants to be a rehabber because there's bigger checks in it, but there's risk there. With a wholesale deal, you could risk $100, zero if you do it right. And so, but either way, whatever you want to learn and do, you have to pick one avenue. So I mean, there's guys in this thing. There's rehabbers, there's wholesalers, there's lease option guys, there's wholesale lease option guys. There is guys that do apartment complexes. There's guys that do tax liens and HUD homes, and I mean, you name it. There is somebody in this book that does some very specific form of real estate investing, and that's mostly all they do.
Right.
Over the years, they might have expanded into other areas of real estate investing, but this is, the guys that were at the top level, guys doing, 1,000 deals, 2,000 deals, 3,000 deals. They have mastered one form of real estate investing and just got really, really good at it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was guys have been doing seller financing deals. A guy out of San Antonio has done like 1,300 seller finance deals. Very, very impressive stuff.
Is that
and
Mitch?
With not his own money, by the way. What? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Mitch is in here. Now, that I learned so much from him because that's a world of real estate I never knew.
Right.
I mean, I know about it. I've heard about it, but I didn't know the details like he talks about it, like, how he knows that stuff. And, man, that is just really, I mean, I learned something from every single interview I did. But I talked to him for like 2 hours offline because I'm like, you got a minute? Because I could use to talk to you a little bit more. So
Mitch is awesome. Really he's actually just releasing a new book as well. And I've had him on the show. He's the only person I've had where we had a 2-part. We were so into it that we usually do about a half hour, and 30 minutes into it, we hadn't even gotten through like halfway. I had to kind of pause. I was like, Mitch, is it okay if we keep talking for a half hour? I'm just going to cut this up into 2 segments, and because I was, a lot of people probably don't realize that I don't just do this show for the world. I love to share it, of course, but it's a learning experience for me. I really enjoy getting to talk to people and meet people like you and just talk. And, real estate investing for the most part, as you probably can agree, is kind of a lonely world if you're not doing stuff like this or in part of masterminds or coaching people or other things to where you can kind of interact and learn from each other. And so,
no, without question. I mean, in fact, one of the tips I got from this, and I learned this by I kind of fell into this years ago when I started teaching at RIAs. So I didn't intend that because I had this mentality too, where it's like, okay, I learned this stuff, I know how to do it, I'm making really good money. I don't want anybody else to know what I'm doing, right? Like, this is only for me. Nobody else can find out my tricks, as if I was the only one that knew how to do this stuff. And once I started, I'm a rehabber, so once I started teaching to meet new wholesalers at the RIAs, I would go to the real estate investor clubs and I would teach there just about rehabbing. I'd talk about what I do. I didn't sell anything at the time. I was looking to meet wholesalers. That's all I was doing. Yeah. And so once I started teaching and talking about what I was doing, people would come up to me and share and give me deals. Like, they had these deals that they weren't sharing. All of a sudden, they were like giving me deals, like, because I spoke at the thing and I talked for free, and it was just awesome. So, but most people, you couldn't be, more right in this business. You get into it, you start making some good money, and you're like, oh, okay, nobody talk to me. I'm not telling anybody what I do. I'm just going to keep making this kind of money. I like these big checks. And what I realized through trying to meet wholesalers was that, like, sharing actually brings you more deals and kind of having that abundance mentality.
Absolutely.
So networking is another takeaway that I have from all of this. Is a lot of people have said, networking, like, networking for deals, like, does that even make sense? How does that work? And going to the RIAs, talking to people, and not even just RIAs, anywhere. I mean, you mentioned in the article, and, if you got to read it to see the whole thing here, but Mike talks about, going to his HOA meeting with his shirt on, it's that says Flip Nerd, or said his company name or whatever was on there, and it wasn't even about real estate per se, but it was like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, hey, here's one house. Oh, 2 years later, here's another house. And so you never know where you're going to be able to meet somebody. And even you talk about that, the mailman who's going to know about vacant properties. I mean, that was so eye-opening to me. I'm like, my freaking mailman, like, I'll just pay him. Hey, dude, here's a couple $100. Just remember me, and then I'll pay you $1,000 if I buy a property from you. How about that?
Yeah.
If you tell me about a property I buy, I'll give you $1,000. And that was huge for me. I mean, huge. I was just like, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, I couldn't wait to get off the call, because I'm like, all right, I got to figure out how do I approach my mailman?
How do you implement it?
When's he coming to my house?
Yeah.
So anyway, just having that networking, and you never know who can bring you a deal. And so that was a very powerful point to all this, is, having that abundance mentality, just sharing, and not like keeping, it is a very lonely world being a real estate investor, especially if you don't get out there and talk. It's just much, and I'm an introvert. Okay. People get to know me, especially when we talk about real estate, and you see how fast I talk, and, and everybody who knows me says there's no way you are an introvert. It's just not possible. And my trainer, who, he's like, dude, there's absolutely no way you're an introvert. How do you? Because I talk a lot. When I'm nervous, I talk a lot. At the gym, I don't love it there. So it's like I talk a lot because I'm like stalling, right? And
you don't have to do any real work.
Yeah, right. So I'm a terrible networker is what I'm getting at. Because I am an introvert. And talking about real estate, I'll talk all day long, but still, I'm not one that likes to start conversations. So I've really had to go out and do that and find ways to do that. But it's such a powerful thing what you do. And so for me, it was speaking. It was getting out there and speaking in front of these groups, and then people would come to me, and it was like forced networking for me, and that was the way that I had to do it, because just going somewhere to chit chat it's not my thing. I'm not a good chit chatter. I'm not a good small talker.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that this was going to work this way, but I was speaking to meet wholesalers, and I realized, wow, this is awesome. Look at, like, people would come to me, and now it was like, it was easy then, and so it's a really cool experience, and having that abundance mentality was really powerful.
Yeah. So talk about you started to, I think I probably detoured you a second ago. You were going to talk about some kind of productivity apps and tools that people use to kind of make their business more efficient.
Yeah, so the apps. So these guys, it was the question that came up in the interview. So I asked all these guys one question, by the way. Here's the question I asked everybody, including yourself. I said, if you had to start your real estate investing business over from scratch today, without much money, knowing what you do now, what would you do first, and what marketing strategy would you focus on? So that was the one question. That's probably why I got so many of these bad dudes that are, like, producing at a very high level, because it was one question, very simple. And then I slipped one more question in right before they called me. I said, I'm going to do a one follow-up question, and could you just share one productivity habit or tool you use on a daily basis that helps you produce the results you do? Whether it's, these guys say splash cold water on their face, to, there's goal setting, there's apps, there's, guys said a variety of different stuff. And honestly, to me personally, that productivity section was more powerful to me than anything. Because it's like, man, look at these guys producing. This guy's done 3,000 deals. What does he do? What's his number one productivity tip? So a lot of guys did say an app, or was also a website, website and app. And so the one I kept hearing over and over and over, I never heard of this one, quite honestly, I'm sad to say, but I already use it, is Trello, Trello.
Yeah.
It's just for lists and organizing, and you can assign tasks to different people on your team, or you just keep it on your own. awesome. I've already have like 6 lists. It's very incredible.
We use that for some things actually. So yeah,
it's a daily. Yeah, it's on my desk every day now. And Podio was another one. Podio is that's one I'd heard of, but I never used it. But so many of these guys just say Podio.
Yeah, that's our CRM as well. Yeah, and
PIO. Yeah. And from your mastermind and from your networking stuff, I'm sure it's where you heard about this stuff, and I've heard about it, and so I finally implemented it recently, and wow, I mean, just the accountability for the team, and and for the on-site pictures can be sent and uploaded into it's just incredible. I mean, very, very impressive. Trello, Podio. And then a lot of these guys running crazy big businesses. I mean, guys doing millions and millions of dollars in business. And you know what they use for their background of all their systems for their email? Gmail. And they use Google Drive. And they use all these free Google products. Yeah. And people think like it's free, so it can't be good. There's one dude in here that's doing, millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars in big, crazy big. And he's the biggest guy in here. And you know what he runs his team with? Google Drive. It's free. He doesn't use it because it's free, because they can afford to buy whatever they wanted. Yep. But they use it because it's very effective. It's real time. You make a change into a document, and then it's real time when somebody else opens it. He's like, I can't find another system that does what we need this effectively and this easily. So they use Google Drive. Yep. So there was the Trello, Podio, and Google Drive, and Skype. Several guys said they could not run their business without Skype. Skype's no secret to anybody, but some of these guys said they could not run their business without it. Yeah. Because they use it for to communicate, because they're virtual.
Yeah, especially if you have virtual assistants or virtual teams. Yep.
Yep. And well, exactly. Well, one guy, I like Mark Evans is out of, he does stuff in Ohio. He's a turnkey cash flow guy. He sells turnkey cash flow, and he runs a virtual real estate investing. And I say virtual with air quotes because he explains it very well in there. Because people hear virtual and like, you can't do virtual. Who did that? Who sells that virtual stuff? You can't. And he's like, here's what virtual is. He goes, I used to live in Ohio. He goes, I run a business in Ohio. I started a business in Ohio. I built it so effectively, and he talks about the E-Myth, and he says that I can now run it virtually from Florida, where I live, right? So that's what virtual means to him. It's not like, never going to a market and flipping deals there, which people do. I know there's guys that do that. Right. It's very difficult to do and challenging, but you can do it. But virtual meant to him, it made, it was like, I'm glad he explained it, because I think it annoys a lot of people, quite frankly. I know it does. And then, virtual, who can do that? Virtual real estate investing. And he even has a book, Virtual Real Estate Investing. But he explains it as he just built a business and stepped away from it. And now from Palm Beach, Florida, where he lives, he runs his business in Ohio and Georgia. And I think Michigan and all over the place, but that's what virtual means to him, is he just built a successful business. And so it was a good takeaway, because when he said virtual too, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then he explained it. It was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. He just built a business essentially.
I haven't had Mark on my show. I know who he is. I know of him. I've had a lot of other people that do a lot of virtual investing, and they invest in multiple markets. And that's been a big eye opener for me in terms of interviewing people, because I thought the same thing. I was like, there's no way. I touch and feel everything. I approve every deal myself because I'm on the hook for it. If you're wholesaling, it's very different, right? But as I started to kind of think about it, really over the past couple of years, I never, literally, I've done over 300 buys, so 600 transactions plus, probably more than that. And I've been to a title company maybe 10 times. Yeah. And those were kind of random ones. Like somebody wanted to use their title company and I couldn't use my own team, so they weren't kind of as friendly to me or what I was doing. But lately I close deals from my iPad and my Chase app. I wire money and in my own market. And it's like, well, okay, it doesn't really matter where I'm at. Literally, we went to other countries. We went to my family. We went to Iceland for New Year's recently, and I bought and sold houses from Iceland. 6-hour time difference on my iPad.
No, you responded to me when you were in Iceland. You were sending me a text message from Iceland. I'm like, really? I'm like, awesome, thank you.
Yeah. So it's really, when you start to think about it, virtually it's in my own market. So I think there's still some challenges with reviewing deals, especially if you're going to rehab them. You want to know a little bit more about what you're getting into. But like you, I've had some of the same eye openers, meeting people and how they're doing things. And I think that the type of stuff that we've done recently that I interview and you interview for your book, and even people listening to this show, what I hope is they get a lot of eye openers out of it. People that should go get your book to learn what some of these other folks have said, because people that have done a lot of deals, there's a lot to learn from them, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I knew I would learn a lot, but I learned more than I ever expected in so many awesome ways. And it was inspiring and motivating, and it was such cool. I mean, like, I couldn't wait to get to the next interview every time. Like, I got personally so much out of it. I mean, I knew I would learn, but I got like motivation and I got inspiration, and I just learned, man, it was just, and like, talking to these guys that are producing at a high level, it was such a cool experience. And literally our conversations are in transcriptions. You can read the entire thing. And there's actually, the course that I'm coming out with was MLS Domination. The audios are going to be available, and there is a bonus. That's going to be the only way to get those audios is in that program. So you will be able to get the audios. There's a way to get those, and just awesome stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us some of the biggest tips. When you kind of asked the question, what threw me for a wrinkle was, what would you do if you had to all do over again with little to no money? And I think it's very possible. Most people get started in this business with no money. It's a lot easier if you have money, I think. I bought a franchise. I paid for a franchise. We had, from the very beginning, you pay for advertising. That's how we generate leads. My business is unique in that regard, but quite frankly, most of the top guys you talk to over time, you'll hear them teaching people how to run your business like a franchise, which typically means making investments in it. So that was the wrinkle for me. But what are some of the big lessons you learned out of people that said specific things they could do with little to no money?
Well, the biggest thing was networking, right? Like going and meeting people that have deals, and asking to sell their deals, right? Like, so co-wholesale, I guess you would call it. You've heard I know there's books on that. Kent has a book on that. But literally, forget co-wholesaling. Just go find guys that have deals to sell and ask if you can help sell them. And if you bring a buyer, if they will pay you half or something. And there's a great way. There's a guy. Matt Terrio. Yeah. Matt, great guy. He's a war vet. He was in overseas, and so when he came back, he didn't have much money. He had no money, and he had bad credit. And so what did he do? He got, now it's a hustle. This is not a piece of cake. But his first month in the business, he went and co-wholesale other people's products. He didn't have to go market for them because people already had them. The buyers he just had to go meet and talk to. So literally with no money in his first month, I want to see him make $18,000 in his first month, and he's never looked back. And he's done hundreds and hundreds of deals since. Yeah. But those are not even his deals, and he sold those deals by hustling. He went out and he met people. He went to one RIA. He found guys that were selling deals on that board, like, hey, I have something for sale. So he went and met that guy. Then he went to another RIA down the street or in another town. He said, hey, here's what I got. He made his own flyer and, upped the price or had a split deal, and none of his own money, just his time, and he made $18,000 in his first month. Yeah. So networking for deals literally and guys said different versions of that, but that was one way that was very powerful to get deals with very little money. And another way with if having MLS access, or if you have an agent on your team, the MLS, that's the deals. Sure. That is what I call the MLS is, I know you probably think MLS stands for the multiple listing service, but it actually stands for motivated list of sellers. There you go. Because it's the biggest list everybody on there wants to sell, right? So now, just like any form of advertising, the MLS, if you send out a blanket of direct mail, most of those people don't qualify for what we do, right? Would you say 90% aren't going to be able to sell it for what we want? Maybe 95%. Right. The MLS is no different. Most of those deals are not for us, but you've got to cherry pick the best ones. And there's, it's time, but it's literally, there's no marketing money in that either. You just got to know how to do it. And so there's lots of ways, there's lease options. There's, Ron Legrand talks about his big thing right now is lease options. He's doing $300,000 and $400,000 houses, and he's doing lease options. So he's none of his own money, no loans, no hard money, no private money, no loans of any kind, none of his money. He doesn't do any rehab on the houses. There's no wholesaling. It's paperwork. You gotta learn the paperwork process. But that's what he's doing. He's doing lease options for like $300,000-$400,000 houses. I was very impressed by that. Now he's done lots of forms of real estate over the years, but his current form, what he's doing right now, is that. And it was just, it's very impressive. And you got guys like Merrill talking about the MLS, and you got guys like Doug Clark. Doug Clark, a guy from Flipman on Spike TV. Is when he got in the business, he did subject twos. He got very good at the subject to the existing mortgage and how to work that deal, and that's still what he teaches today. So but an overwhelming thing that guy said too is to find a mentor. Whether you have to go work for one, if you can't afford to buy one, right? go work for one. Go offer to work for somebody for free, right? If you can't afford to pay one, a lot of these guys charge 10 and 20, 25,000 for their one-on-one coaching or their mastermind program or whatever it is. And if you can't afford that, then go off, find a guy in your market that, find the biggest wholesaler, find the biggest rehabber, and ask what you can do for him for free, right? Because then he'll teach you as you go. So, find a mentor. Big thing was, because if you try to learn this on your own, you could spend 10 years and, just be spinning your wheels still. So learn from somebody who's doing it already.
Yeah, and even if you do pay, I think what a lot of people don't think enough about is the opportunity cost of their time. Like, okay, you're going to do something and you're complaining about the money, but how much money will you lose by taking 10 times longer to learn it and miss out on a bunch of opportunities in the meantime?
Without question.
Yeah.
My first program I paid 10 grand for. I had no money at the time. I had no business getting into it, I thought. I put it all on my credit card, and knowing what I know now, I would pay $30,000 for that. Because it taught me everything I needed to know. There's so much I needed, and I still go back to that same. By the way, I've been doing it 7 years. That was 7 years ago. I got in that program. I still go back to that website for different resources. I'm like, oh man, maybe they updated something, or I don't have this, and it's still one of those those things that I go back to because it's like I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit more about some of the programs that you have? I know you have a product coming out that is the MLS Domination product, right?
Yeah, MLS Domination. So I'm a licensed agent in Illinois, and that's where I started. I started, as an agent, so I had a really good understanding of the MLS. And so as a rehabber, that's why I use that as my primary deal source. Once I got into one-on-one coaching, originally for a big national chain, and then I got out of that. And I liked it, so I got back into one-on-one coaching on my own. And so I was teaching these guys, one-on-one on my own, charging a lot of money for it, and they were happy with it. But what we kept going over, we would do 2 calls a month, and we kept going over MLS stuff. And I'm thinking, man, there's got to, we're charging, this is big money, and for us to go over what I thought was low-level stuff. Now, they weren't happy with the call, so don't get me wrong. I just thought we should be going over much higher-level business-building stuff during our phone calls.
Yeah.
And so, but we'd come back to the calls, and we would talk about MLS. They'd say, how do we do the MLS thing? Remember that REO thing? You talked to that REO agent, and what did you say to that REO agent that got you that deal? Or was that estate sale agent? What was that trick that you used to get? Because, with estate sales, very often I'm not the highest cash offer that they accept. That's not because my money's greener. That's because the dialogues I have with the agent initially during the, when the thing lists, I submit my offer, I say the right stuff to that agent that gets them to want to work with my offer. And they come back and they say, oh, you're not the highest cash offer. Would you like to increase your offer? And I say, no, I say, I told you I gave you my highest cash offer. This is the best one I can do. Now, you probably have a couple offers that are higher than mine, and those are probably from inexperienced real estate investors, and maybe they're not, but the odds are, I know I could pay this amount. The odds are they're going to go do the inspection, they're going to come ask you for some ridiculous inspection credit, and you're going to be 2 weeks later, and I might have spent my money. Maybe my $245 that's good today will only be worth $240 if I even have that money anymore, because I have to go spend it on something else.
Right.
So I can pay you $240 today. That guy offered you $255. What if he asked for a $20,000 credit because he says there's a foundation leak or there's a I waived the inspection, and so it's just dialogue.
Yeah,
it came
absolutely.
down, the right stuff to say. So, because all the time I buy estate sales, and I'm not the highest cash offer, and that's not by mistake, And so we kept going back to all these dialogues, and so I put together a product to give to my one-on-one coaching students. Literally, that's the only reason I was creating it, was to say, okay, you sign up for my one-on-one coaching program. I'm going to give you this, what I was calling MLS Domination. I didn't come up with a name for it because I didn't have anything. It was just because I do the MLS. And so it was through that I, once I created the product, I'm like, this is an awesome product. And then through the product creation process of learning how to get it online, I'm like, I should just make this even better and just sell it to the world. And so I have an active role in the course because I answer questions and I'm in there, actively, doing stuff with people. So I open it. It's going to be open here in about 2 weeks. I think you're releasing this in a week or so. The course will be open for a week. We'll be closing it down here, I think the week of the 16th. And but it will be open for a few weeks for people who want to come in.
Cool.
So it just teaches people how to use the MLS.
And without really knowing your program at all, you could probably agree that when I said earlier, traditionally I haven't bought very many houses off the MLS, but what I'm when I say that it's hard for me to go look at active listings and see a deal and make an offer on it. But you'll probably agree that a big part of kind of dominating the MLS is building relationships with people that get MLS type deals. So my guess is you probably get some deals before they ever hit the market, right?
Lots of them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's part of it too, is building those REO. The biggest. I love estate sales. It's my favorite deal in the MLS because that's made me the most money. But those don't come on very often. And they're my favorite deal. But the pot of gold in the in the MLS is the smaller REO agents. The guys doing like 10, 15 deals a year. And the big ones, there's a way to work with them too, but that's not the smaller REO agents. You contact that guy and say, hey, I just looked at your property. I can pay list price, or I can pay over list price, or whatever you can pay. And can you represent me as a buyer's agent also? And this is a guy you've never met before. And now you're giving him, and he'll say, why would you do that? I say, well, because I'm a licensed real estate agent. But I'm an investor. I make my money in the back end of the deal, and I need to build relationships with guys like you. So if you are able to double in the deal on this, all I ask is that if you get more of these deals, you bring them to me, and you can always double in the deal with me. And so what do you think they do? Now they have to hit the market, right? But who anybody watching or listening, you see those deals that hit the market, you're like, oh, and then it goes under contract 1 hour later.
Right.
Do you think anybody ever had a shot at that ever?
Right.
That was already sold before it ever hit the market. They have to list those deals because the bank has to see it go active. So they list it, they take a screenshot of the active listing, and they mark it contingent because it's already sold because they sold it for list price.
Right.
So yeah, there's all those ways to build that goes into networking, right? It goes back to networking, and that's what it's all about is how to build relationships. And that the biggest key in here is how to work those smaller REO agents. But there's so much stuff in here that covers how to get deals in the MLS.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll add links for the MLS Domination, real estate, investing rock stars, all that down below the video here for those that want to get access to it. Anything else you want to kind of summarize?
Yeah. Here, well, you know what I'll go through real quick are the other productivity habits. I shared some apps, but the biggest overwhelming thing was time blocking. The guys that are producing at a very high level, hardcore. I mean, one guy did every Friday, phone off. His Friday is his planning day, his systems day. It was John Cochran. He does not talk to anybody on Fridays, right? Like hardcore time blocking. But most of these guys did about 2 hours a day, no email, phone off, or phone on airplane mode. There's a great app called Focus at Will that you could put on your phone or your computer, and when you put the app on, it plays like whatever music you want. I have really slow classical, but it doesn't let your phone ring. It doesn't let your email open. It doesn't let anything. It block, and you can put 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 120.
Wow.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, so that's a big app that a lot of these guys use. But time blocking anyway, like specific 2 hours, 3 hours a day, where you don't let yourself get interrupted, and the importance of goal setting. Like here, this is a great one from Merrill. I thought it was a great way to explain it. He does very hardcore weekly goals, and he resets them every Sunday night. And his goal of setting his goals is actually to hit 80% of his goals. And you say, why would he want to hit 80%? Because if he hit 100%, then he set the goals too low. So he wants to set his goals high enough where he actually can't reach all of them, so he can reset them for the next week. So the goal is not to complete all of them. It's best he could, but if he did do 100% of them, so I'd heard that at some level before, but just powerful to hear a guy produce at his level. He wants to only hit 80% of his goals for that week because he didn't want to undersell himself on what he could actually accomplish. He wanted to set it a little too high. The bar, it's really cool stuff. Yep. And then systems. The importance of systems was last, and that led into the apps and the websites. But using those systems and having systems in place. But the time blocking was probably the biggest one. I started doing that about a year ago. It changed my life. I mean, literally. I was trying to figure out how to spend more time with my kids and at home. And I'm like, man, I got so much. I'm trying to, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm always doing other stuff. I just got stuff going. And the minute I started time blocking 3 hours a day, no phone. I tell my wife she knows how to get a hold of me. She's the only one that knows how to get a hold of me during that time. And it's only if you call me and my phone's off, only emergencies. And I have gotten so much done in that 2 or 3 hours a day. It is wild because you're not looking at Facebook, you're not checking emails, you're not no texts are popping up bothering you, no phone calls are ringing, nothing. If you just do 2 hours a day, will change your life. I mean, it's very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I struggle with myself for all the same reasons. I have a ton going on, and you start to feel like when you put yourself out there like you do or like I do, that I've got a lot of people depending on me now. I need to be available for them when they need me. But the reality is there's nothing that's so urgent that it can't wait for a few hours.
There's no fires.
Yeah.
There's no fires.
And if there is a fire, by the way, there's probably nothing you could do to stop it immediately anyway.
Well, nothing that needs, that can't wait 3 hours at least, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it. And once I got past, because I had that mental block too, and once I got past that mental block of there's nothing that can't wait 3 hours, nothing that can't wait 3 hours,
right.
Except for my kids and my wife, which is why they are the only ones who know how to get a hold of me during that time.
Yeah.
But that is emergency time only, and so.
So do you want to publicly share how the people could get a hold of you, or no?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have a line at my office that nobody knows the number. Except my wife. She's the only one that knows that number. It's fine. I set it up because I had it for me. It was like, oh, my wife. That was my mental block,
yeah.
right? Like, okay, so beyond people needing me, what if my wife needs me during that time? And so I was struggling with that, and so that's why I set up a line in my office. I turn off the other ones. There's one line that my wife is the only one that knows the number to, and so then I feel comfortable because for me, I had to get past it somehow. Yeah. I have 3-year-old twins. I'm like a freak about their safety, like anybody with their kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm always worried. I'm like that dad. And so it was a mental block for me. And that's how I figured it out. So she never calls, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just the peace of mind that it's there if you need it,
Yeah.
It's like an airbag in your car, right? You probably drive it forever and ever and never need it. Just the comfort to know that there's some safety features there, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. So, but time blocking at least 2 hours a day has changed my business life, and I'll do it forever. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, Jim, thanks so much for sharing. So for those listening or watching right now, we're going to add some links down below here for how to get to Real Estate Investing Rockstars. Get the ebook. It's going to be full of some great information just from what Jim shared here with us today, and literally 30 full interviews. So there's a ton of information that we didn't even get to today, as well as how to get to the MLS Domination program that Jim's about to launch here. So, Jim, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. We'll talk again soon. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit flipnerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to flipnerd.com.